This isn't going to be a super long video because I don't think I need to explore in depth what all the inspirations behind Enamorus might be. For one, Loxton already made a video about Enamorus, so you can watch that if you're interested, but also, I just don't think it's really relevant to my main point here. But before I get into Enamorus, I think I need to acknowledge that I might be a little bit biased going in because I do not like any of the other forces of nature, at least not their incarnate forms. The Therian forms are fine. I think the incarnate forms are all too humanoid and they're ugly, although that's not necessarily a bad thing, but my big problem with them is that they all look basically identical. It's especially pronounced in their Gen 5 sprites, which have them all in the same pose even, and of course, that was my first impression of them. They all look like the same buff, shirtless dude, just wearing different accessories. I don't find their lore all that compelling either, but I'll give them some credit for it. You have 2 Pokemon representing destructive weather, and 1 representing the land and bountiful harvests. It feels a bit disconnected, but it's also a parallel to the role of destruction in natural cycles of growth. But then Enamorus gets added to the pool, and that particular interplay gets lost. Now they're awkwardly recast into roles to do with the seasons, and they're assigned new weather conditions. Like, Tornadus becomes winter, even though tornado season is more in the spring. Thunderous gets summer, which I guess is fair enough. But then Landorus gets associated with sandstorms and heat, while also still representing harvests, which happen in the fall. It's just a mess. It probably wouldn't have felt so awkward if these Pokemon had Hisuian forms that better fit their new roles and that ideally also made them more unique. But what bothers me the most is that they're retconning established lore for the sake of adding Enamorus. There is one good thing about it. The way that the tail is both a boa constrictor and a feather boa is very clever. And I would also appreciate that it's not just a clone of the others. It has a unique body shape and face design, and the tail is also unique. But in this case, it would have actually been better if it did match the buffness of the others, because Enamorus is just the girl genie. Of course they made it fairy type. Of course they made it pink. Of course they covered it in hearts. Of course they made it represent spring, and it's the force of nature of love and sex and temptation, because that's all a woman can be, isn't it? So of course they also made it dainty. The girl genie couldn't possibly be hench. Enamorus blatantly reinforces a number of harmful sexist stereotypes. It reinforces the notion that men can be anything, but women can only be 2 things: pleasure for men when they're young, and mothers when they're not. If you don't think that's a bad stereotype, you don't know enough women who don't want children, or who don't want husbands, or who do want those things but can't have them.
1 in 4 women cannot have children.
Imagine being a woman who wants to be a mother but can't because of, say, a medical condition. Imagine the pain of not being able to have children when the signal from the culture at large is that that is the only value you could have. I've heard some people say that Enamorus to them reads more queer-coded rather than girl-coded, like it's supposed to represent a gay man or a trans person. Personally, I think that between it being the only 100% female species of the set, while the others are 100% male, and Kojita referring to Enamorus as she when talking about it, it seems pretty clear that they intended for it to be read as a woman, but I can see where the queer reading comes from. And that just complicates the issue, doesn't it? Like, if this is supposed to be a gay man, the stereotypes are different, but they're still there. Enamorus has some deep and complex inspirations that could justify the choices that they made here. But how many people are gonna look at Enamorus and immediately clock that it's based on Ugajin and Ainu face tattoos? No. On the surface, which is the most important aspect when talking about character and creature design, it's just the genies, but a girl. You know what else has some deep and complex inspirations that could be used to justify their bad choices? Jinx. Jinx takes inspiration from yokai like the Yamauba, from Japanese street fashion like Ganguro, from opera singers. It's among the more complex concepts of Generation 1, but intentionally or not, all of this comes together in a design that is glaringly racist. Enamorus is the Jinx of gender. We condemn Jinx's design for being racist, despite all of the innocent things that went into it. There is no reason we shouldn't also condemn Enamorus. Thank you to the Libros who support my work through Patreon and YouTube channel memberships, like luxury patron Ethan from Chicago. But today I especially want to shout out Moon patron Gano, whose Enamorus rants helped to shape my thoughts. The Jinx comparison came from them, and it's very astute. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next chapter.